Yeah, and obviously it was just a huge fuck up and I was wrong. Hey guys, what's going on? My name is Slava P and I'm here for Gary Grandset. I'm going to talk about something I thought I'd never have to talk about. But now my YouTube is monetized and drama means clicks and clicks mean revenue. So let's talk about the podcast that I was involved in called Cool Mules by Canadaland. And as some of you may know, is owned by one Jesse Brown. Start from the beginning. Okay, when the National Post story came out, I was devastated. It was really bad. I'm not even going to try to pretend. But the thing is that the prevailing emotion was that I was shocked at how much hearsay and gossip was involved. It was like someone had wrote a front page story based on rumors they heard in a Queen Street nightclub bathroom. It was the head honcho, the lone wolf, who acted by himself, and it was vaguely alluded to the fact that I used Vice somehow to pursue this scheme that I had found organically. It sucked. I'm not going to lie. But what really sucked was how the media treated me. It was almost like I was a one-dimensional villain in a heist movie. It was like the whole Vice guy who got caught was the entire story here. No nuance, no texture, no curves. And most importantly, no nuance, no humanity. It was all just clickbait. But it wasn't just clickbait, it was also in the traditional media. I was a front page news story in the only national newspaper Canada has. So what did I do? I did what any scorned ex-journalist with good instincts but bad impulse control would do. I moved to Montreal and changed my name. I tried to disappear in the one city in North America where anonymity is almost like an aesthetic. And while I was there on the run in my little one-bedroom condo, I was listening to Canadaland. Specifically, I was listening to Shortcuts, a media show where Jesse Brown would talk about all of the things that the media got wrong that week. All of the stories that were inflated or deflated, or a specific angle was taken to prove a point. And the whole time I'm thinking, maybe this guy gets it. Now, if you don't know who Jesse Brown is, that's probably because you're not Canadian, which is okay, I forgive you. But Jesse Brown was a journalist who used to work for the CBC, who went on to go do his own thing that was kind of big on Patreon, and he actually gained national exposure when he covered the Giancomeshi case. The Giancomeshi case was about a CBC radio host who was accused of doing some sexual improprieties that, to be honest with you, if they were uncovered into 5, wouldn't even receive a headline. Also, not for nothing, but since then, Jesse Brown has come out in favor of AI porn for Taylor Swift, so it's like, was that a moral crusade, or did you just not like that Giancomeshi was from Iran? Because, folks, that's the thing about Jesse Brown. He used to be about the truth. He used to be about media criticism. He about punching up. Now he's just a deranged Zionist that reports on every time a strong gust of wind heads towards a synagogue. But back then, he fooled me. He seemed like he genuinely cared about the truth and about holding media's feet to the fire, and he was no fan of the National Post. So in my mind, I'm thinking, if anybody's going to get the story right, it's going to be Jesse Brown. Right? Wrong. But when I pled guilty to my crime and decided that it was time to speak publicly, I did reach out to him. And to be completely and totally honest with you, Jesse tripped over himself trying to get in contact with me. He gave me his personal cell phone number within 20 minutes of me sending an email to the email that he would repeat at the end of every Shortcuts show. Which, I get. It's an interesting story, Jesse. I started off telling him the things that I found wrong with the National Post reporting, and he was immediately like, no, we're going to make this a full show. I was thinking it would just be like a little guest on Shortcuts being like, hey, this happened to me and this is how it reported and here's how it actually went down. No, he's thinking, fuck, 5 to 7 episodes, dog. Because he was saying all the right things, I gave him exclusive access. I thought we were going to unpack how the National Post got it wrong and why. How they painted me as a lone wolf when the truth was much more complicated and nuanced. And why portraying these poor travelers as poor travelers and not autonomous individuals who made their own decisions may have been colored by the type of people that they were. Pretty much, I thought the story was going to be about how the media failed to do what the media was supposed to do, which is report the truth. Instead, Jesse ran the exact same article, but just in podcast form. It was like he fed Adrian Humphrey's reporting through ChatGPT and hit export as podcast. Wait, can you do that? Now, you might think that this is sour grapes on my end, but it's not really, because someone named Kate Nibbs actually did the exact same story for The Ringer, and even though it didn't do me any favors, at least it was fair and reported both sides. She actually reported. She called people and she gave the story space to breathe while letting me use my own words, sometimes to my very obvious detriment. Her piece was balanced and borderline sympathetic, which is what I needed at that moment. I was supposed to go to jail. And the funny thing about Kate is she is still a reporter. She's at The Wired now doing great work. Probably the only publication left that is funded beyond Patreons or racist podcasts. And guides on how to make money selling stuff online. Subscribe to my channel, please. But meanwhile, Jesse Brown just took the podcast and he shipped it as a National Post edition. And he had the nerve to call it journalism. The worst part about it, though, was the whole time I was giving him exclusives, I was talking directly to Jesse, one-on-one. direct, no intermediaries, no second voice. So imagine my surprise when I started hearing the podcast and heard that the host was his producer who was just sitting beside us. He had pretty much deflected all of the blame onto his assistant. I don't remember her name. Sorry. It felt like a bait and switch, and honestly not even a very good one. I think the podcast did alright. By Canadian standards, it was even beating the Joe Rogan Experience for a couple days. But Jesse was bitter because COVID hit and it kind of killed his whole momentum. People don't care about my story when there's a global pandemic. Jesse was kind of salty. He's actually mentioned it a few times in the earnings reports. Sorry, c'est la vie, Jesse. The cool thing about all of this is that I was able to write my own book about it and really let things be coming out in my own words. Not to mention that now I have this channel, which most people are only tuned into because they wanted to hear either salacious prison gossip or some tips on how to make money selling Pokemon cards. In fact, I might be doing myself a disservice here because most of my audience has never heard of Cool Mules until I brought it up right now to respond to it. But hey, rising tide lifts all boats, and I think Canadaland needs all the help it can. So if you guys actually can hit the subscribe button on their channel, I think their number one video is an interview of Jesse talk to the Israeli ambassador for Canada. But don't let that deter you. It's like totally honest, balanced reporting. He's kind of like Rachel Gilmore. And the best part about AI, that it wasn't involved in the making of bad trips at all. I wrote that shit in my jail cell over the course of 9 months, pen and paper, and I can prove it to you with the ink in my furnace room. In fact, the book got optioned, but that fell through. I'm going to save that for another episode of Dear Diary. But this one is all about Canadaland, Cool Mules, and Jesse Brown. Because Jesse Brown showed me something important. He showed me that even media critics will chase virality as long as the numbers look right. Even the guy who built his whole career on calling out bad journalists will become a clickbait goblin if you let him cook too long in the algorithm. And now, as Canadaland desperately scrapes the bottom of its IP barrel, trying to revive as subscribers leave the half-burned content mill, I figured I'd add my 2 cents. So here's my note to Jesse Brown. You suck. I've met men with more honor in jail, and they were not in there for good reasons. Anyway, this has been another Dear Diary. Slava P, Gary Grindset. Follow for more.